Chapter 1. The Call That Changed Everything. The sun dipped low over the rolling hills of Montana, painting the sky in molten gold and crimson. Dust kicked up behind the black Ford F-450 as it rumbled down the long gravel driveway, the sound of tires crunching on stone echoing through the quiet valley. The ranch sprawled before him, 500 acres of open land, grazing cattle, and a 2-story log cabin nestled beside a still, glassy lake. This was home. This was peace. Derek Hollister killed the engine, stepped out, and took a deep breath. The air smelled of pine, dry earth, and freedom. After 6 months in Washington, D.C., attending closed-door meetings, testifying before Senate committees, and managing the sprawling network of housing oversight that most people didn't even know existed, he was finally back. He had earned this. Derek pulled his cowboy hat low over his eyes, slung a duffel over his shoulder, and started toward the house. He hadn't told anyone he was coming back. Not his sister, not the ranch hand, not even the caretaker who lived in the guest cottage. He wanted silence. He wanted solitude. He wanted to feel the wind on his face without a microphone in it. But as he stepped onto the porch, the phone-ins, his pocket buzzed. It wasn't his personal line. It was the red phone, the one only 3 people in the world had the number to. He froze. The red phone only rang when something had gone catastrophically wrong. With a sigh, he pulled it out. The screen flashed. Emergency alert. HOA compliance breach. Cascade Ridge Estates, Colorado. Derek frowned. Cascade Ridge Estates? That was a gated community outside Denver. Nice homes, expensive cars. The kind of place where people argued over lawn gnome height and mailbox paint codes. He opened the alert. Incident report. Nugger 7743. Alpha location. 1428. Ridgeview Lane. Cascade. Ridge Estates. Co-subject. Unauthorized law enforcement engagement by HOA. President against property owner. Details. HOA President Marge Langley has contacted local police, alleging trespass and code violation by resident Derek Hollister. Claim. Hollister is illegally occupying property under non-compliance with CCRs. Police dispatched. No warrant. No court order. Note. Subject Hollister is the National Director of the Federal Housing Oversight Authority, FHOA. All HOA jurisdictions fall under his jurisdiction. Immediate intervention required. Derek stared at the screen, then he laughed. It started low, a chuckle in his chest, then erupted into full-blown laughter that echoed across the valley. Marge Langley called the cops on me, he said aloud, shaking his head. She doesn't even know who I am. He looked up at the sky. Lord, give me strength, he muttered. And maybe a little justice. He dialed the Denver Police Department. Chapter 2. The woman who thought she was Queen Marjorie. Langley, known to her neighbors as Marge the Enforcer, stood on the manicured lawn of 1428 Ridgeview Lane, arms crossed, chin lifted, eyes narrowed like a hawk spotting prey. She wore white tennis shoes, khaki shorts, and a pastel pink polo with the Cascade Ridge Estates logo embroidered over the heart. Her silver hair was styled in a tight bun, not a strand out of place. Around her neck hung a laminated badge on a lanyard. HOA President, authorized to enforce covenants. In her hand, she clutched a clipboard, her weapon of choice. Behind her, 2 Denver police officers approached the front door of the site house, their hands resting on their holsters. This is a private residence, Marge said, voice sharp. The owner hasn't paid dues in 6 months. He's violated multiple covenants, unapproved exterior paint, satellite dish installation, and failure to maintain landscaping. He's been warned repeatedly. Now he's squatting. One of the officers, a young man with a buzz cut and tired eyes, glanced at his partner. "Ma'am, we're just here to check on a possible trespass," he said. "We don't handle HOA disputes." "He's not the owner," Marge snapped. "The deed is under review. Until he complies with the CCRs and pays his fines, this property is under HOA control. I filed a motion with the board. The second officer, older, more experienced, raised an eyebrow. "You filed a motion to evict a homeowner over paint color?" "It's not just paint," Marge said, jabbing her pen at the clipboard. "It's about standards. This community was built on order, discipline, and aesthetic cohesion. We have rules for a reason. If we let one person ignore them, where does it end? Next thing you know, people will be parking RVs in driveways and letting their dogs poop on the grass." The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "Mom," he said calmly, "we can't evict someone without a court order, and we can't enter the property without consent or a warrant. If this is a civil matter, you'll need to go through legal channels." Marge's face turned red. "You're supposed to enforce the law," she hissed. "This man is in violation. He's undermining the entire community. I demand you remove him immediately." Before the officer could respond, the front door opened. Derek Hollister stepped out. He was tall, 6'3", broad-shouldered with sun-weathered skin, piercing blue, eyes and a calm that radiated like heat from stone. He wore faded jeans, a plaid shirt rolled to the elbows, and boots caked with ranch dust. He looked at Marge. "You called the cops on me?" he asked, voice quiet. Marge straightened. "You are in violation of covenants, conditions, and restrictions. You failed to respond to 3 notices. You altered the exterior paint without approval. You installed an unpermitted satellite dish. You owe $4,327 in fines and back dues. This property is under administrative review." Derek didn't blink. "You don't have the authority to do that." "I am the elected president of this HOA," Marge said proudly. "I have full legal standing." "No," Derek said, stepping forward. "You don't." He pulled out his wallet, flipped it open, and showed her a badge. It wasn't police. It wasn't military. It was black with a silver seal. A house encircled by stars. Beneath a balanced scale. Beneath it, in bold letters, Federal Housing Oversight Authority Director, National Compliance and Enforcement. Marge blinked. "What? What is that?" Derek closed the wallet. "I'm Derek Hollister. I own this house. I also oversee every homeowners association in the United States." Silence. The officers stared. Marge's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You what?" Derek turned to the officers. "Gentlemen, this is a waste of your time. I'm the homeowner. I'm in full compliance. This woman is attempting to unlawfully seize my property through fraudulent administrative claims. I suggest you leave." The older officer nodded slowly. "We'll be going." They turned and walked back to their cruiser. Marge stood frozen. "You can't just—" "This isn't over," she sputtered. "I have bylaws. I have power." Derek looked at her, his voice cold. "You have no idea what power is." He pulled out his phone. "Initiate Protocol Black," he said. The screen flashed. "FHOA Emergency Authorization. Director Hollister. Cascade Ridge Estates. Full audit and suspension. Imminent." Marge's face went pale. "What did you just do?" Derek smiled. "You're about to find out." Chapter 3. The Hidden Authority. To understand how one man could hold the fate of every HOA in America in his hands, you had to go back 15 years to a quiet congressional hearing room buried in the basement of the Hart Senate office building. It was 2009. The housing market had collapsed. Foreclosures were rampant, and in the chaos, one entity had quietly grown in power. The Homeowners Association. What? started as a way to maintain neighborhood aesthetics, had become something else entirely. Mini-governments with no oversight, no accountability, and unchecked authority to fine, evict, and even foreclose on homes over minor infractions. A woman in Florida lost her house because she painted her front door purple. A veteran in Arizona was fined $10,000 for flying an American flag too high. A single mother in California was forced into bankruptcy after her HOA levied $50,000 in landscape improvement fees, and no one could stop them. Because HOAs weren't government agencies, they were private corporations, and they operated in a legal gray zone, immune to most regulations, funded by mandatory dues, and governed by self-elected boards with no term limits, no audits, and no transparency. Congress ignored them, the media dismissed them, until Derek Hollister walked in. At the time, he was a real estate attorney from Montana, representing homeowners who'd been crushed by HOA abuse. He'd lost his own brother to an HOA foreclosure after a dispute over a shed. He came to D.C. to testify. What he did instead was change the system. For 3 hours, he laid out the corruption. Fake boards, secret meetings, forged documents, illegal, liens, and outright extortion. He showed how HOAs were being used as tools for gentrification, price manipulation, and even political control. And he proposed a solution: a federal oversight body with the power to audit, sanction, and dissolve abusive HOAs. No one thought it would pass, but it did. The Federal Housing Oversight Act of 2010 was signed into law by a president desperate for a win on housing reform, and Derek Hollister was appointed its first director. The Federal Housing Oversight Authority, FHOA, was born. Its mission: to ensure that HOAs served homeowners, not the other way around. Its powers: vast. It could audit any HOA at any time. It could freeze dues. It could remove board members. It could dissolve entire associations. And only one person had the authority to activate those powers: Derek Hollister. He operated in silence, no press, no public appearances. The FHOA was deliberately kept out of the spotlight, because the moment HOAs knew they were being watched, they'd change their behavior. So Derek worked in the shadows. He had field agents across the country, AI monitoring systems scanning HOA records, whistleblower networks, and a single red phone that only rang when an HOA crossed the line. Like today. Chapter 4: The Audit. Begins back in Montana. Derek sat at his kitchen table, boots up, laptop open. On the screen, FHOA Secure Portal, Cascade, Ridge Estates, Audit Initiated. He typed a command: Initiate full forensic review. All records, financials, communications, board votes, past 10 years, activate AI cross-check, flag irregularities. Deploy field agent, Denver, on-site inspection, freeze all dues and fines, pending review. Suspend board authority, immediate effect. The system confirmed each command. A notification popped up: Cascade Ridge Estates, HOA. Status: suspended. All operations halted. Board members restricted from financial access. Derek leaned back. It was done. Within minutes, emails were sent to every homeowner in the community. Subject: important notice. Cascade Ridge Estates, HOA. Suspended by federal authority. Dear resident, the HOA, Federal Housing Oversight Authority, FHOA, has suspended the Cascade Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, effective immediately due to suspected violations of federal housing law, including unauthorized fines, fraudulent governance, and attempted unlawful eviction. All dues are frozen. All fines are void. The board is no longer authorized to act on your behalf. A full audit is underway. You will be contacted if your testimony is required. Sincerely, Derek Hollister, Director for FHOA across the neighborhood. Phones buzzed. Homeowners stared at their screens. Confused. Relieved. Excited. One man. Steve Reynolds, who'd been fined $8,000 for excessive mulch, laughed so hard he dropped his coffee. Another, Maria Chen, who'd been threatened with foreclosure over a basketball hoop, cried. And Marge Langley, she was in her study, frantically calling her lawyer. "They can't do this," she screamed into the phone. "I have rights. I was democratically elected." Her lawyer, a weary man named Carl, sighed. "Marge, the FHOA is a federal agency. If they say you're suspended, you're suspended. And if they're auditing you, you're in trouble." What kind of trouble? Federal trouble. As in, if they find fraud, you could be personally liable. Fines, jail time, loss of professional licenses. Marge slumped into her chair. "This is absurd. I was protecting the community." "From what?" "A purple door. It's about standards." Carl hung up. Marge stared at the wall. Then she opened her laptop and began deleting files. Chapter 5. The Web of Corruption. The FHOA audit moved fast. AI systems combed through 10 years of board minutes, financial records, and email archives. What they found was staggering. Fake meetings. 78% of board decisions were made without quorum. Many meetings never happened. Minutes were forged. Financial fraud. Over $2.3 million in dues had been funneled into a private LLC owned by Marge's husband. The money was labeled landscape improvements, but no work was ever done. Extortion scheme. Homeowners who complained were hit with escalating fines. One woman was fined $12,000 for excessive bird feeder usage. Voter suppression. Ballots were discarded. Opponents were blacklisted. Marge had been re-elected unopposed for 8 years because no one else was allowed to run. Illegal liens. The HOA had placed liens on 7 homes without proper notice or legal basis. And the cherry on top? Marge had filed a motion with a fake court, the Colorado Residential Compliance Board, demanding the forced sale of Derek's home. The board didn't exist. The document was forged. Derek forwarded the evidence to the FBI. Then he made a call to the U.S. Attorney for Pace. "Colorado, get a warrant," he said, "for Marjorie Langley. Charge her with fraud, extortion, and impersonating a government authority." Chapter 6. The Fall of Marge Langley. 2 days later, federal agents raided Marge's home. They seized computers, documents, and a safe containing $47,000 in cash. Marge was arrested on her front lawn, handcuffed in front of her neighbors. The video went viral. HOA president arrested. After trying to evict federal official, Karen called cops on rancher, didn't know he runs all HOAs. The man who controls every HOA in America. Just took down a tyrant. Derek didn't give interviews, but the FHOA released a public statement. The abuse of power by certain HOA boards has gone unchecked for too long. The case of Cascade Ridge Estates is not isolated. It is symptomatic of a nationwide problem. The FHOA will no longer tolerate fraud, extortion, or the weaponization of community rules against homeowners. Audits are now underway in over 200 HOAs across 42 states. Reforms are coming. Homeowners across the country celebrated. In Texas, a man burned his fine notices in his driveway. In Florida, a woman painted her door neon green and live-streamed it. In California, a group of residents formed a HOA resistance meetup. And in Washington, D.C., Congress held an emergency hearing. Chapter 7. The National Reckoning. The hearing was packed. Lawmakers, journalists, homeowners, and HOA representatives filled the AA room. Derek Hollister sat at the head of the witness table, calm, composed, wearing a simple gray suit. Senator Linda Cho, chair of the Housing Committee, opened the session. Director Hollister, thank you for appearing. The public is demanding answers. How is it that one HOA president could wield so much power? And how did your agency allow this to happen? Derek leaned into the microphone. We didn't allow it, Senator. We were unaware. The FHOA was designed to be reactive, not proactive. We only intervene when abuse is reported. But the system is broken. HOAs operate in secrecy. They control their own records. They silence dissent. And they exploit the fact that most people don't know their rights. He paused. But Cascade Ridge was a wake-up call. And now, we're acting. He pulled out a folder. Over the past week, the FHOA has initiated audits of 217 HOAs suspected of abuse. We've found systemic issues, forged documents, illegal fines, financial mismanagement, and in 12 cases, criminal activity. As of today, we are dissolving 33 HOAs. Another 67 are under temporary suspension. Board members in 18 associations are being referred for criminal prosecution. Gasps filled the room. An HOA lobbyist stood up. This is overreach. HOAs are private organizations. You can't just shut them down. Derek looked at him. Actually, I can. Under the Federal Housing Oversight Act, any HOA that engages in fraud, extortion, or violates civil rights forfeits its legal standing. We don't shut them down for enforcing rules. We shut them down for breaking the law. He turned back to the senators. But audits and dissolutions aren't enough. We need reform. He presented the Homeowners Protection Act of 2025. Mandatory. Transparency. All HOA meetings, votes, and finances must be recorded and published online. Term limits. No board member can serve more than 2 consecutive terms. Due process. No fines over $500 without a neutral hearing. Anti-retaliation. Homeowners cannot be fined for speaking out. Federal oversight. The FHOA gains authority to conduct random audits. The room erupted. Some cheered. Others protested. But the momentum was undeniable. Within a month, the bill passed. Chapter 8. The ripple effect. The changes were immediate. In suburban communities across America, power shifted. Homeowners gained control. Secret boards were exposed. Fake fines vanished. In one town, residents voted to eliminate their HOA entirely. In another, they reformed it, electing a diverse board, cutting dues in half, and focusing on real issues like safety and sustainability. And Marge Langley? She pleaded guilty, fined $1.2 million, ordered to repay every dollar she stole, banned from serving on any HOA board for life, and sentenced to 18 months in federal prison. On the day she was led away in handcuffs, a group of former neighbors stood outside the courthouse. They held signs. "Goodbye, Marge. We'll miss your tyranny. Hope Prison has HOA rules. Thanks, Derek." Chapter 9. The man behind the badge back at the ranch. Derek sat on the porch, watching the sun rise. His phone buzzed. Another alert. New report. Sunny Pines, Florida. HOA threatening foreclosure over unapproved solar panels. He smiled. The work never ended. But it was worth it. Because for the first time in decades, homeowners had a voice. They had protection. They had power. And they had someone watching their back. Derek. Hollister wasn't a politician. He wasn't a celebrity. He was a rancher, a guardian, a quiet force in the shadows, and the man who, with a single call, could bring down an empire of control. He stood, stretched, and walked inside. The red phone stayed silent. For now. Chapter 10. A New Era. The reforms spread. The FHOA grew. Field offices opened in every state. Whistleblower rewards increased. And homeowners began to understand their rights. The age of HOA tyranny was over. Not because of one man, but because one man refused to look away. Derek Hollister never sought fame. He didn't want statues. He didn't care about headlines. He wanted justice. And in the end, he got it. As he rode his horse across the Montana hills, the wind in his face, the sky wide open, he knew one thing. The ranch was his, the land was free. And the people, they were finally in control of their homes.